Welcome back. Cash-in-transit robberies continue to plague South Africa's highways. In fact, in a recent incident just this month, police engaged in a shootout with 2 suspected robbers in New Glasgow, Verulam, north of Durban, resulting in their deaths. Among the suspects, a 55-year-old man identified as a notorious figure in the world of cash-in-transit crime, allegedly involved in at least 23 separate robbery cases. So we're asking this evening, are officials losing the battle against cash-in-transit robberies? To help us unpack the story, we're joined this evening by Trinity Msibi, who is a reformed cash-in-transit heist kingpin, and Calvin Rafadi is also in studio. He is a crime expert. To both of you, thanks very much indeed for coming into studio. We appreciate your time on a Saturday evening, and I think it's only fair, Trinity, that I begin the story with you. You're the one with the most intimate knowledge of what it takes to pull off a cash-in-transit heist, and more importantly, what it is about our country that makes it possible to do so successfully. How do you answer that?
Okay, I'd firstly begin by saying, we are actually not equipped, as law enforcement officers, or should I say law enforcement faculty. They're not really equipped, or should I say, they don't have enough tools to actually, defend themselves against such. We start first perhaps with their training. In their training, perhaps there are things that lack. If you want to compare the policing in South Africa with other countries, say for instance, let's just take a country nearby, maybe Botswana. You go into Botswana, you are told by how they policing there and everything like that. As a criminal, you are scared even to go into that country. They tell you about Lesotho, you are even scared to go into Lesotho because they'll tell you if you are apprehended in Lesotho, this is what happens, So the training of the police and how the police do their duties, and also the punishment that goes with it, for the criminals, then it makes it actually more easier. And how do I put this? Yeah, it makes it more easier for criminals to say, okay, I can do this, because the law is actually lenient in a sense. I might put it that way.
Sure. Calvin, what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, no, indeed. I wanted to first start by saying, when it comes to the issue of Ekululeni, the rapist, I wanted to acknowledge the police on the good work.
Right.
Yes.
The serial rapist.
The serial rapist, those police, I think it's Warrant Officer John Mukwena, and then even the recent incidents about, Captain Keshi Mabunda.
The alleged insurance.
The alleged insurance fraud. Those police,
yeah.
We need to give them ranks. We need to award them with ranks. So we kindly ask the police ministry to honor those men. They did a great job. But now, coming back to the main topic, I think when we speak of cash in transit in South Africa, crime intelligence is supposed to be proactive. Now we come with issues where now we deal with reactive after the aftermath of every cash in transit. But to answer you, if we infiltrate and strengthen the crime intelligence, because crime intelligence, their role in every type of a syndicate, like with this particular one, they have to go on covert and infiltrate the criminals. Now, these criminals in the cash in transit, they are well known, most of them, by the way. That's why even in the township, there are people who are aiding and abetting them. There are girls who are even dating them. They'll call them, we only date abantu bamakati. They call it amakati, it's a cat. So about the people who are committing those type of crimes in the cash in transit, they call it a cat. Because they say, if you don't tame it well, it will scratch you. That's how dangerous the cat is. So you get people who are worshipping these particular criminals. So the network is known. So if crime intelligence can collect the data and infiltrate. Now, it's one of the crimes whereby there's a lot of recruitment. And by the way, there are even ex-soldiers from other SADC region who are involved in cahoot with this particular syndicate. Now, when it comes to issues of SAPs as well, some of those syndicates, they've even infiltrated, because every syndicate, they've got a policeman who gives them a tip on what are the scenarios, what will happen, and even to a point that, that's why even in areas like the Northwest you have mentioned, you'll find them having a two-way radio whilst committing the cash in transit, they'll even listen to that particular two-way radio to know where is what we call a gear 4. Now, a gear 4, it's when the police, you know, they will somehow react or demarcate or even block some certain roads for the cash in transit, not for the suspect not to make a getaway. But at the same time, while we spoke about aiding and abetting, most of the cash in transit people, they look for what they call it a safe house. Now, we've seen in most of the KZN and other areas where you get what we call the takedown operations, where criminals are found in conspiracy before they commit a crime, or even after they've committed a crime. Most of them, they are found in those safe houses where they retaliate, not resisting arrest, and police end up shooting them. Because whenever a cash in transit is committed in a particular area, criminals, they don't run away. They've got a getaway car. There's a car that they use to ram the van. They'll leave it at the crime scene. Then there are getaway cars. But those getaway cars, they will now go to a safe house where now they will hide. Someone is aiding and abetting them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Trinity, let's take a step back. We're speaking to you. You are a reformed cash in transit kingpin. How does one become a cash in transit kingpin?
Yeah, perhaps let's how do I put this? Let us first correct the fact that there isn't a kingpin in this cash in transit heist. You know, we all come in as different people and with different tasks that we need to do, or as to execute the whole thing, or to actually live a life of that nature. There is no kingpin. It's a phrase that they coined, calling people who are formerly criminals, and then they give them the title kingpin. So there isn't a kingpin, because everybody else in that field is important for whatever duty that they are going to execute during the robberies. Now, what would need to be actually done, like I said, tightening the screws in the law enforcement facilities or faculty, because this is where everything else is loose. Take for an example, one goes to jail, and then in jail, when they come out of jail, they do crime again. What causes that? You know, the way how they are treated in jail, the way how they do things in jail, it actually, it's more like they go there to learn more about, you know, criminal activities and to how to do those better, you know. So we as formerly, should I say, people who are reformed, mm-hmm. we are not utilized in the country, you know, because obviously we are tainted with criminal records, and now that we are reformed, nobody's coming to the fore and saying, guys, how did you do this? How did you do that? Let us get information from you. Nobody can utilize a former criminal in this country. But in other countries, like for instance, America, they do that. They use people who have a foreknowledge of this and then say, how can we cap this? Like he's saying, speaking on how they execute these and the getaways and da-da-da-da-da. It's not the same format, you know. Sometimes it's only one car. And they're actually not going to even, knock on the money vehicle or anything of that sort. It's just them getting into a business place where somebody who is a picker from the money van is going to be, entering the store, and then they taking that, that tin that has the money. Yes, and then...
I want to ask you, Trinity, and sorry to interrupt you there,
okay.
As we include our other guests as well. Thabang Bogopa is also going to be joining us in a moment. But I want to ask you, in your experience and in your time involved in the sector of cash in transit heists, how closely or how much did you depend on intelligence from police? Did you have anyone inside the police that was helping you pull off a heist? Yeah,
absolutely. Each and every time when you are in cash in transit heist, there is somebody in the law enforcement that is actually involved in whether physically involved or perhaps providing with some equipment like your radio, your vests, and everything like that, or even the tips to say, guys, because I'm a policeman, I went there and actually we were investigating a case and this is what we found and this is what we find. He's actually giving us a job. That's what we call it, And then he would say, this is how they keep their security, because he's got this information. Remember, he went there, perhaps investigating a case, and then he found out everything about the crime scene. And then he comes and he relates this to us, and then he tells us what's going to happen. and how we should execute it, because he knows when they're supposed to be responding as SAPS, this is how they're going to respond. Therefore, we already have a foreknowledge of how they are going to respond.
And he is paid for this information. He or she
obviously he gets the full share as everybody else. If everybody else is getting 15 rands, he's going to get 15 rands.
Let's bring in Thabang Bogopa, who is an independent crime researcher and forensic scientist. He joins us via our video link this evening. Thabang, I hope you've been listening to what Trinity has been describing about his time as someone who is involved in cash in transit heists. What's your reaction to that?
Good evening, my sister, and good evening to the two analysts. And indeed, perhaps let me start from this position of integrating some of the previously corrected, I'll use the lame word, offenders or rehabilitated offenders in terms of assisting. It is a common practice in the FBI, and whereby they coordinate with previous offenders. But then let's also look at a common challenge that I'm hearing from the two analysts, that there's still a gap between our national intelligence or our intelligence as well as the DPCI, which is the Hawks, simply meaning that those who are from the intelligence gathering can still withhold information from the DPCI, which has mandate of investigating this CIT heist. But then also there's two types of CIT heist. I heard more about the cross pavements, which are the ones that are less grievous or less violent. But then the most grievous ones are the CIT bombings, which the issue of infiltration is mentioned by both the two analysts. Now, the challenge here is that always there will be infiltration, which is legally supposed to happen. There will be an infiltration by either an intelligence operative or an operative from the DPCI. However, now the challenge is with the vetting, that some of these intelligence operatives end up actually committing these offenses for personal gain. So someone will be mandated to infiltrate again in the benefit of the law enforcement of the state. But upon realizing the money or the benefits that come with committing this offense, they end up now committing other offenses with these gangs, instead of assisting the police in terms of bringing the information that tomorrow at 4 a.m. we're going to be raiding one, or we're going to be having a CIT heist on the N1. They just keep quiet, and it happens successfully. Or they leak the information, but they have two others that they are going to do with the same gang, but they don't report back to their handlers. But lastly, my sister, the other challenge is in terms of custodianship over investigation. You'll understand that within the DPCI, the Hawks, only the commanders are the custodians of the case docket. So if a gang was to agree with one person in a province, then they can easily be allocated one of the, I would say, not so competent investigators, or investigators who are not so interested, or they could actually make sure that the investigator who's on standby or who's going to be allocated to investigate that case is actually 300 kilometers away from the case when it's reported. So when the guys have gone to their safe house, they've distributed the money for some times, there's little evidence for them to gather. So the DPCI would now have to start afresh with gathering evidence. Whereas if there was a measure perhaps within the Directorate for Priority Crime, and as well as empowering other units to say if such a crime is reported, despite the DPCI, other units can still take over to the level that if one unit is successfully handling a case, we allow that unit to investigate until prosecution and successful conviction.
Thabang, thanks very much for that, and we do apologize to our viewers for the quality of our connection to Thabang Bogopa. He's an independent crime researcher. As we continue to unpack the issue around cash in transit robberies, the trends, the patterns, and of course the modus operandi as well, with Trinity Msibi, who is a reformed cash in transit heist kingpin, although he says kingpin is the wrong term. Calvin Rafadi is also in studio with us. He is a crime expert. Stay with us. We continue with this discussion. Welcome back. Let's continue with this discussion now. And as we know, cash in transit robberies continue to plague South Africa's highways. We did see in the latest crime statistic that there was a slight decrease in the number of CIT heists for all provinces except for the Northwest. But in a recent incident just this month, police engaged in a shootout with two suspects just north of Durban, resulting in their deaths. Among the suspects, a 55-year-old man identified as a notorious figure in the world of cash-in-transit crime, allegedly involved in at least 23 different cases. We're unpacking the story here in studio this evening with Trinity Msibi, who is himself a reformed cash-in-transit heist kingpin, quote unquote. And we've also got Calvin Rafadi, who is a crime expert. To both of our guests, thanks for staying with us this Saturday evening. Calvin, I want to bring you back into the discussion to pick up on what Trinity was telling us earlier about the involvement of police in the success of cash-in-transit heists. Does this come as a surprise to you? And I imagine not.
No, it doesn't come as a surprise. Actually, I think the main question also we need to ask is that what is this cash in transit? Where does it originate from? So basically, this were the training of the guerrillas when they were in exile. So they were actually trained that should our country perhaps, you know, we can go and kidnap a particular president and make certain demands when it comes to money. That's why I spoke about the skill that is being transferred. Now, in the past, there were guys like Fingers Rabotapi, Collins Chauke. From my township, there was a guy called Bosipala. Those were the guys from the MKVA. Now, they were trained to commit these particular crimes. So they, you know, gathered all the resources and they trained even other some of their friends to commit this particular crime. So it's a skill that is being transferred. Not only that, they even went after the farmers and to repossess them the firearms, because they had a belief when they came back from the exile that the farmers, they are sitting with many foreign currency, Kruger rents at the time, and they were having collection of guns. So this was a training before. So after that, many were then rehabbed and brought cadre deployment into the crime intelligence. So that's why there was so much cadre deployment in the crime intelligence. So the crime intelligence guys, most of them, that's why they know the modus operandi. They know the method of committing this thing. Now, if there's grievances and fiction, like Ian Cameron has said, that there's many fictions in the subs units. If there's disgruntled members, that is the danger about it. That's why you see many of them end up being in cahoot with the criminals.
Sure. Yeah, and there's obviously a long history to this phenomenon that we now know as cash-in-transit heists. I mean, for you, Trinity, it's quite obvious in the shootouts we've seen with police that these robbers are very well armed. You were talking about the fact that they in many cases police can't keep up with just how well capacitated these robbers are. How are they so well capacitated?
Okay, firstly, we would want to understand how do they get the weapons, the
firepower,
armory, you know, the firepower and everything of that sort. Now, when the people are arrested, what you would find there is, say, a rifle firearm, and then you find perhaps police firearms involved in there, like your, say, Z88. He would know that, you know. So now you ask yourself, how did this firearm come out of the police force into the hands of the criminals? That's the first question you need to ask, how these came about. Some of them, there were firearms which were confiscated by the police, stored into the police. Some are given to, or should I say, are licensed to security companies. Some of the security companies are the ones who are actually transporting the money vans, or the money with their vans. And also those securities, there are some of the people who are also compromising the very same companies, you know, to actually, you know, bring in people who are committing these crimes. Like me, for instance, I would have a security inside that company. I wouldn't name any company, but they would say, we've got a job. This is what, and I'm going to be transporting so much. Therefore, this is what you need to do. After the crime is committed, all those firearms confiscated from those guys are taken away. Each crime produces new firearms into the firm or into the company of the criminals. And then obviously it gets exacerbated, or they increase, you know, their weaponry. And then you would want to think we are safe in the hands of the police. But if police are underpaid, I'm not making an excuse for them to commit a crime, but if they are underpaid, and with all the pressures that the economy is bringing on them, you know, the law-abiding citizens, what compromises they might do? a lot. And those some of those is to sell guns or confiscate a firearm from somebody else and sell it to somebody else or give it to somebody else, that type of thing. So the armory also comes from, with the bombings, it comes from the dynamites that they use in the mining facility, or should I say faculty, there, and then you get to buy those type of things. And then there's also armory that was taken from the soldiers, as he's articulating about them coming from a military training, or should I say background, It's true. That's where it actually started being a phenomenon to say, okay, this is how we should execute this. But nowadays, it doesn't actually require that you have a background of, military and so forth. It's just you applying what you were told. Not even have experienced it, but something that somebody has told you that this is how we execute it. Remember, if we can't curb recidivism, it's where the problem lies. Once I come out of jail, I go outside. I've sat with people who have done better things than I did before I went to jail. Now, they're talking these things. When they talk them, it's more like an inspiration to me. When I get outside, I want to do better. I want to do more than they did. What am I going to do? I'm going to imitate them and also add my own knowledge, especially on the basis of how I failed before or how they failed before.
Certainly. I mean, the issue of recidivism is such an important one. I want to talk to you about the very real risk that comes with working as a cash-in-transit robber. I mean, we've seen multiple shootouts with police that end with multiple deaths on the side of those who are behind the heist. Were you ever caught up in anything like that, in a shootout with police?
Yeah, like a couple of times, and I was shot at as well, On another instant, I escaped, I wasn't arrested, but when I got arrested, that case came upon me. I had to attend a lot of cases. The last time I was arrested, when I went to jail and stayed for a long time, like 12 years, the other guy whom I was with was shot, was shot 4 times on the chest and he died there. The other one was shot on the leg and he's actually limping as we speak, and he's still in jail. So there are many times where you are confronted with the police reaction, But as I said, the training received at the SAPS, I'm not blaming anyone, but I'm just saying let us improve on that as a country.
And you think you can play a part in that?
I can play a part in anything that desires to resolve this crime. Remember, I'm sitting here and I'm exposing myself to a lot of viewers without even taking into cognizance what if the criminal word is going to target me. What does that tell you about me? It tells you I'm willing, to actually help and play a part in that.
Calvin, what's your take on that? Do you think that someone like Trinity could be helpful in terms of intelligence gathering for police?
Definitely, Trinity is a great asset. And I'll tell you where he should fit in. There's what we call state security, the SSA. Because there's crime intelligence, which is, with the mandate of the subs. Now there's state security. Now state security, they've got what we call spotters. They go and recruit. Now their recruitment system, the reason why it's not performing well nowadays, they forgot their mandate. It's because they only recruit law students fresh from the university. There's nothing wrong with that, but they need a mixture of people who are hackers. They need to recruit them. Even criminal lawyers. You know why? Because a criminal lawyer, a criminal trusts a criminal lawyer to say, I need to move my money to a numbered account in Cyprus. I need to do this. Advise me on the Bitcoins. Because they are the custodians of such information. They are the ones who, they are on their recruitment platform or spotters, like I said. They are the ones who must recruit people like Trinity. Certainly. Because their mandate is for the safety of, they are the watchdog, they are the custodians of the information, for the well-being of any sabotage or any, crime syndicate in South Africa. So they are the ones who must recruit people like Trinity as an asset. But their recruitment system for now, and that's why they are failing, by the way, it's not up to scratch.
Well, it's clearly not working. How does one become a reformed CIT robber?
I can tell you about myself, Firstly, in the DCS facilities, there isn't enough to actually help you with, rehabilitation. It's just those few programs which you are not even coerced to actually, indulge in them or engage yourself in those. But it's more of a decision thing, where you decide whether do I want to carry on doing this or does this benefit me? Because here's the thing, the ramifications are very dire. I'm speaking to you, I've got half fingers on my right hand. This is a ramification of me doing crime. I've got a scar on my head. This is a ramification of me doing crime. I stayed 12 years in jail, and previously I had stayed in jail for 6.5 years. Now you can imagine that there are people who died. And then when I was in jail, a son died, a mother died. When I came back, stayed 12 months with my own child, and then he died, and then I'm alone now in the world. There is just a lot. But before that, it all boils down to a decision that you make. You get apprehended, you get caught, and then you come back to your senses, because you really need to recollect your thoughts as you're sitting there in jail. You cannot just be imprisoned even in the head, that type of thing. So if you imprison your brains, obviously when you come back, you start where you stopped, you understand? But with me, it was more of a godly inspired decision. I took up Adventism, which is a religion I do. I'm coming from church as I came here. So I'm somebody who's more godly, should I say, aligned. So from studying the Bible and reading other informations and books and getting motivated and this and that and that, and also from motivating other inmates whilst I was inside there. So all of that, it also gives me that thing of saying, if I can inspire these people who are hardcore criminals like I was, and they get inspired, what more can I do when I'm in the outside world? Which is what I'm probably doing by now, So you get to a point where you make a decision and you stick to that decision no matter how hectic it is. Let me tell you something quickly. I was selling cakes just before the business fell at scones and muffins at the taxi rank. Somebody comes whom I know from my previous life. He comes, he got 10 grand, and he puts it on my table and says, you need to go back to do these things, man. Let me buy cake, but this one is for you. And then I said to him, hey, take your money. I don't need your money. So when I say decision, it simply means you won't be part of anything, whether you were involved in the robbery, but you receiving money coming from the robbery. What are you telling the world? You're inspiring the very same thing. And it's very easy for you to actually re-offend because you're accepting that crime should be done, but not by you. Then who should do crime for you? You understand? That kind of thing. So it all boils down to decision and sticking with your decision. But mostly I credit God for it because that's where my strength is.
Trinity Msibi, let me thank you for your time, for being so open and honest with us and letting us in this evening. We do appreciate it. And Calvin Rafadi, thank you for being part of this conversation.
Thank
Calvin
you so
is
much.
a crime expert, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. All the best to you too.
All right, we've been focusing on cash in transit robberies this evening, getting you some real insights into what makes it possible for these CITs to be so rampant in the country.